10 kids, who were raised by wild animals. These are not Jungle Book stories, they are often harrowing cases of neglect and abuse. Feral children are confined by humans, often parents, and brought up by animals or live in the wild in isolation. Here are kids who fell through the cracks, who were forgotten, ignored, or hidden. Number 1. Oksana Malaya, the Ukrainian dog girl. Ukrainian girl Oksana Malaya was found living with dogs in a kennel in 1991. She was 8 years old and had lived with the dogs for 6 years. Her parents were alcoholics, and one night they had left her outside. Looking for warmth, the 3-year-old crawled into the farm kennel and curled up with the mongrel dogs, an act that probably saved her life. She ran on all fours, panted with her tongue out, bared her teeth and barked, slept on the floor, and she ate and took care of her hygiene like a dog. Because of her lack of human interaction, she only knew the words yes and no. Oksana now lives in a clinic in Odessa working with the hospital's farm animals. Malaya was eventually transferred to the foster home for mentally disabled children in Bearable. She underwent years of specialized therapy and education to address her behavioral, social, and educational issues. Upon adulthood, Oksana has been taught to subdue her dog-like behavior. She learned to speak fluently and intelligently. She works at the farm milking cows but remains somewhat intellectually impaired. Doctors feared that it is unlikely that she will ever be completely rehabilitated into normal society. Number 2. John Sabina, the Ugandan Tarzan boy. John's hidden talents include turning up his lips to show his gums, but otherwise you would never guess he is a real-life Tarzan. When his father brutally murdered his mother in 1988, John fled into the Ugandan jungle fearing that he would be next. John was then rescued by a group of vervet monkeys who saved him from certain starvation. Cautious at first, when the monkeys realized John was not a threat, they began feeding him, handing him sweet potatoes, roots, nuts, and cassava. He learned how to survive in the canopy of the Ugandan forest, climbing trees, and finding food with the monkeys. It was only in 1991, after a tribeswoman out collecting wood saw John, that the 5-year-old was brought back to civilization. Villagers were baffled by the boy, who was covered in hair and had overgrown toenails and a strange gait. They tried to feed him warm food, but it made him seriously ill, and he did not comprehend the basics of human life, including toilet training. But John was taught how to live as a human and how to speak Swahili by his adoptive parents, Molly and Paul. He also learned how to sing, and he even joined a choir, which saw him travel to the UK on tour. His life also became the subject of a hit BBC documentary in 1999. Number 3. Marina Chapman, girl raised by monkeys. Marina Chapman is a Colombian-born British woman who spent much of her early childhood in the jungle alone, except for a colony of Capuchin monkeys. Chapman was approximately 4 years old when she was kidnapped, and then released for a reason she did not understand. She spent the next several years following Capuchin monkeys, until hunters rescued her, by which point she had no human language. She later was sold to a brothel in Cucuta, then lived on the streets, and then became a slave of a mafia family. A neighbor, named Marija, rescued her from her predicament. Marija's daughter, Maria, adopted Chapman when Chapman was approximately 14, and Marija sent Chapman to Bogota to live with one of her daughters. The family sent their children to Bradford in 1977 and sent Chapman to be a nanny. She had lived in Bradford since about 1983. She married a scientist in the Bradford area and they have 2 children. She subsequently wrote her autobiography titled The Girl with No Name with the help of her daughter, Vanessa. National Geographic created the documentary Woman Raised by Monkeys. It premiered on Thursday, December 12, 2013. An incredible true story of a girl raised by monkeys. Number 4. Daniel, the Goat Boy. Abandoned in the Andes as a small child, this young boy befriended a herd of wild Peruvian goats and lived with them for a staggering 8 years, drinking their milk, eating berries and roots, and nursing from female goats. When he was discovered in 1990, he walked hunched over on 4 legs, unable or unwilling to stand on only 2. His musculature had been so affected by 8 years on all fours that his bone growth was abnormal, and his palms and soles were covered by thick calluses that affected his ability to grip things with his hands. He could communicate with goats and could not learn human language. Little is known of what happened to him after he was brought back to civilization. The Andes goat boy was investigated by a team from Kansas University and named Daniel. Number 5. Laircar Werewolf Boy. In 2007, villagers found this wild creature in a lair made of leaves and sticks in freezing temperatures and called the police, who captured him and named him Laircar, though his real identity is not known. He was found in the Kaluga region of central Russia. Laircar had been living with a pack of wolves and had wolf-like behavior and instincts. It is suspected he has been running wild for many years. He moves around with his legs half bent, running with wolves and searching for food with them. His nails on his feet were like claws and was unable to speak any human language. Laircar has very strong and sharp teeth. He snarled and tried to bite policemen when they brought him in. He appears intelligent but does not seem to speak Russian or any other language. He looks about 10, but after tests conducted by Moscow medics, they believe he may be much older. After 24 hours he had evaded security men at the clinic and escaped and has never been found. Hospital staff had not been able to complete the proper medical checks. They only succeeded in giving him a shower, cutting his nails and took some blood. He is now believed to be on the loose in Moscow region. It's quite possible he is dangerous with psychological problems but also a source of viruses and infections. Such cases are not uncommon in Russia, where there have been regular reports of Mowgli children abandoned by their parents who are cared for by animals. Number 6. Sham Bo. Raised by wolves. In May 1972, a boy aged about 4 was discovered in the forest of Musafir Khana, about 20 miles from Sultanpur. The boy was playing with wolf cubs. He had very dark skin, long hooked fingernails, matted hair, and calluses on his palms, elbows and knees. He shared several characteristics with Kamala and Amala: sharpened teeth, craving for blood, earth-eating, chicken hunting, love of darkness and friendship with dogs and jackals. He was named Sham Bo and taken to the village of Narayanpur. Sham Bo cannot learn to talk despite the medical aid. Sight of blood and raw meat always excites him. In 1978 he was admitted to Mother Teresa's home for the destitute and dying in Lucknow, where he was renamed Pascal and was visited by Bruce Chatwin in 1978. He died in February 1985. Number 7. Rokham Pinjian, the Cambodian jungle woman. In 2007, 29 years old Rokham Pinjian was found by a team of tree loggers standing naked on the edge of a clearing, filthy naked, frightened and looking like a monkey on the edge of the jungle in northern Cambodia. It is believed that she survived by befriending various animals, including monkeys, as she appears to walk with a similar gait and stature. Rokham first disappeared in 1989 while herding water buffalo with her sister in the province of Ratanakari. Her sister has never been found, but Rokham emerged from the jungle and was caught stealing food from a farmer's lunchbox after a stakeout. Locals reported sightings of her with a long-haired naked man carrying a sword, but if that Tarzan had ever existed, he was never found. She has not learned either of the local languages but prefers to crawl rather than walk, refuses to wear clothes and has made several attempts to return to the forest where she grew up. Her parents identified her from a scar on her arm from an old knife and welcomed her back into the family. She also had wraparound scars on her wrists suggesting she might have been tied up for a long time. A Cambodian non-governmental organization believes that it is impossible that a girl of 8 could survive in the jungle, and that she was actually brought up in captivity. All attempts to reintegrate her for so many years failed. In May 2010, she fled back into the jungle and has not been found again since. Number 8. Sujit Kumar, raised in chicken coop. One of those looking after Kumar is Elizabeth Clayton, widow of New Zealand mountain climber Roger Buick, who died on Everest in 1998. When she first met Kumar, he pecked at his food and would crouch down as if roosting. His fingers turn inward from scratching around in the dirt. He communicates by making a rapid clicking noise with his tongue, and he seems detached from much that goes on around him. Kumar was discovered by Clayton in an old people's home in the Fijian capital Suva. He had been tied to his bed for 20 years after being found in the middle of the road one night and taken to the home by welfare officers. When his mother committed suicide and then his father was murdered, Kumar fell into the care of his grandfather in rural Nasiri outside Suva. The grandfather locked the 6-year-old in a chicken coop where he lived for many years. Kumar was aggressive when he arrived at the Samabula old people's home, so the staff tied him to his bed and there he remained until Clayton heard of his plight. Kumar is now cared for by Elizabeth Clayton, who rescued him from an old people's home and set up a charity, housing children in need. For Kumar, the transition after being found could be as difficult as the years spent in isolation. Psychologists and a team of American behavioral scientists have been examining Kumar and his bizarre background, which, if true, is one of the most tragic cases of child abuse in Fiji. Number 9. Vanya the Bird Boy. In 2008, this 7-year-old boy who can only communicate by chirping after his mother raised him as a pet bird has been rescued by Russian care workers. The child, named Vanya suffering from Mowgli syndrome, was found in a tiny 2-room apartment that appeared to double as an aviary, filled with cages containing dozens of birds, bird feed, and bird droppings. The bird boy was treated like another pet by his 31-year-old mother. Because she never spoke to him, Yudin cannot engage in any normal human communication. His only communication was with the birds he was surrounded by, and they taught him birds' language. He chirps when spoken to, and when realizing that he is not understood, starts to wave hands in the way birds winnow wings. Yudin is temporarily living in an asylum, but soon will be transferred to a center of psychological care. His mother signed an abdication form to release him into care after he was discovered. Number 10. Amala and Kamala. Children raised by wolves. In October 1920, there were reports from villagers of ghosts in the jungle near Godamori, India. A Christian missionary in India, Reverend Jal Singh, and his wife, who ran an orphanage in Midnapore, enlisted some locals to track down the ghosts to a wolf lair. They dug it up to find 2 wolf cubs and 2 human children, whom Singh named Amala and Kamala. The 2 girls showed wolf-like behavior typical for feral children. They would not allow themselves to be dressed, scratched, and bit people who tried to feed them. They rejected cooked food and walked on all 4s. Both girls had developed thick calluses on their palms and knees from having walked on all 4s. The girls were mostly nocturnal, had an aversion to sunshine, and could see very well in the dark. They also exhibited an acute sense of smell and an enhanced ability to hear. They enjoyed the taste of raw meat, and would eat out of a bowl on the ground. The girls seemed to be insensitive to cold and heat and appeared to show no human emotions of any kind, apart from fear. At night they would howl like wolves, calling out to their family. When Amala died of dysentery and tapeworms in September 1921, less than a year after her capture, Kamala showed signs of mourning at her death. Kamala was eventually partially house-trained and became used to the company of other human beings. She was able to walk upright a little, although never proficiently, and would often revert to all 4s when she needed to go somewhere quickly, and learn to speak a few words. She died in 1929 of tuberculosis. Thanks for watching. Subscribe for more.